Hello, welcome to the next video in our Python object-oriented programming course. Again, if you haven't taken the Intro to Python course, the link's at the top up here. In this, we go over more basic things like loops, arrays, lists, if statements, and just like basic syntax in Python to get you started. This is a more advanced course that goes over higher level concepts, so you shouldn't be taking this until you've at least taken our intro course. So today I wanted to get into how to extend the functionality of a parent class, just like in the docs. And we're going to use the dog example again. So there's something in inheritance called overriding a function in a child class. It's kind of like when you it has a lot to do with scope. It's kind of like when you have a variable in a main program and then you define a function and you use the same variable, but it's only local to that function. It's the same thing with classes where you can redefine a function that's in a parent class specifically for a more specialized child class. And then you can change how it works a little bit without changing the base method of the parent class. So what I mean by that is, let's say we wanted Jack Russell Terriers to have a little bit of a different speak function, but we didn't want to change the speak function in dog because we wanted to use that in the other two dog classes. Well, then we'd have to redefine speak in Jack Russell Terrier because we want it to only be a little bit different for Jack Russell Terrier. So let's say we put some code in, we defined a speak function, and we wanted to give Jack Russell Terriers the default sound, which is arf, and we set it up like this. We have self.name says sound. Okay, and sound doesn't need self because sound is being passed in only for the function, not as one of the attributes of the class. So notice how we didn't define sound in the constructor. It's only a parameter for the speak function. That's why we don't use self for sound. It's only relative to the function, not the entire class or the object. So yeah, so we redefined the speak function for Jack Russell Terrier, but we made the default sound arf. So even if we don't pass in an argument for sound, the Jack Russell Terrier is going to say arf. So if we did print speak woof for Miles again, and then we'll just say we'll print it again. And then we run. So it says, Miles says arf. So if we pass an argument, it would use the argument, because this is called a default argument, where we put in an argument in the parameter definition, so that when we don't use a parameter when calling the or using the function, it'll automatically use arf instead of just doing nothing or throwing an error. So so if we pass the speak function to our Jack Russell Terrier Miles, he'll say woof. But if we don't pass a parameter, he'll use the default, which is arf. But we have a little bit of a problem, which is we kind of had to redefine the function, and we might not want to change certain things about the parent function. So if you look at the course docs, we wanted to change the dog function a little bit and change the formatting. So we did change says to barks. And let's do start dashing, buddy. So put it a little bit above. Okay. So we changed the parent function, speak. So we changed says to barks, and we put a colon in. And then we use the speak function with buddy, who is a dachshund, and we use the speak function with, sorry, down here we used speak with buddy, who's a dachshund, and then we use speak with Miles, who is a Jack Russell Terrier. But as you can see, Buddy has the same formatting of the parent class, but Miles doesn't. So how do we redefine the function in Jack Russell Terrier to have this default argument for the parameter without changing the formatting or completely redefining the function or just copy and pasting this code over here? Basically what I'm trying to say is, how do we get to say Miles barks woof and Miles barks arf without completely rewriting this line of code? Well, that's where we would use the super function. So instead of rewriting this as barks, which is the same thing we wrote here, you could do this. Return super dot speak sound. Now if we run, you see Miles barks woof and Miles barks arf. So what we did was we redefined the speak function in Jack Russell Terrier, but it's going to reuse this function and then just with a default parameter this time. And we use the super function to do it. So what the super function does is it goes back to the parent class, it gets the speak function from the parent class, and then we reuse it down here. And then we pass it sound as an argument. So this sound is like this sound, but super means use the parent class's code or use the parent class's function definition. And then all we did was we passed it a default parameter. So now we're using the speak function in Jack Russell Terrier, but it's a little bit more specialized, which means Jack Russell Terrier now has arf as a default parameter for sound. So if we did, again, when we did Miles.speak, we kept the formatting from the parent class up here without having to rewrite the code, and we have a default parameter now for Miles, who's a for Jack Russell Terriers that other types of dogs don't have. So if I did print buddy.speak and I didn't pass it an argument, I would get an error. See, it says we're missing a sound argument. So I'll just move this a little bit so it's more organized. So I got an error on line 53 here when I tried to use buddy.speak, and I didn't pass an argument. So the reason for that is because we defined a default argument in Jack Russell Terrier speak, but Bulldog, when he uses speak, he goes back up to the parent class, but there's no default parameter for this. So we're getting an error because we're not giving a parameter to the speak function for Buddy, who is a dachshund. And dachshund requires a parameter to be passed into the speak function because it's using this speak function. So yeah, if we wanted to make it so Buddy could speak without passing a parameter, we'd have to copy this down here. And let's say we wanted to change it a little bit different. So his default sound is roof. And now if we run the code, you'll see Buddy says roof and Miles says arf, and it doesn't pass an error anymore. Because now dachshunds also have a default parameter for sound. Yeah, so that's just a little bit of an explanation on how you can extend the functionality of parent classes. You can use the super function to refer to the parent class's version of a function, and then you can add on to function definitions. Just remember that when you do this, there's a term called overriding the parent function, which means anytime you use a dash-in, it's automatically going to use the newly defined speak function instead of the parent class's speak function. The only time it's going to use the parent class's speak function is if there's no function definition for it in the child class, in the more specialized class. So yeah, that's how overriding works. And overriding will always choose the most specialized, or the furthest down in terms of children, as long as the function is defined in that class. So yeah, I hope this helped explain how inheritance works a little bit more, and how you can change functions within child classes. And next time we're going to be going over an example just to reinforce how to use super and how to extend the functionality of parent classes. Thanks, and see you next time.